You know, when you elect a government of merchants, the merchandise that will be carried out of the country, you don't know.
So these merchants don't have a sense of shame or at least dignity in their endeavors?
Their shame is consumed by the lagis and the money that they get.
Not respect for the sanctity of human life?
That human life is secondary. So when the government is not predictable, it becomes easy for anybody to pass a story. So what they need to do is to lift their socks and learn to be trustworthy. Don't tell us what is not possible. Yeah.
Truly delighted to have your company on Business Glide, your go-to point on matters, public policy analysis, business and economics at large. I am Richard Mwanja. Welcome to the conversation. Today we are unpacking a raft of issues in the world of Kenya's economy. But first things first, allow me to introduce the gentleman who's going to help me delve into the nitty-gritties of the day's subject. That is none other than this renowned think tank, former minister, Ruto Arap Kirwa. It has been a while since I had you on this show, the business show.
But I learn a lot from the show. Actually, I say little. I learn more from the show.
You leave it to the economists to do the bigger talking.
Yeah, to do a lot of talking, and I appreciate that. Yeah.
Much humbled. How about we begin with the latest development that has really caused a lot of uproar among taxpayers, and more particularly Kenya Airports Authority staff. That is the Adani takeover of the JKIA airport. From the government side, they say there's need for us to harness the potential of public-private partnerships, PPPs, just so to achieve that economic growth that we so desire, and also to restructure where we're having messes in our economy. But from your end, as a seasoned think tank leader in this country and also decision maker, you've touched a lot on the policy landscape. When it comes to this Adani takeover, was this the surest way to address our problem with JKA and especially that particular sovereign infrastructure?
Yeah, from the little understanding, thank you for the opportunity.
Sure, thank you.
From the little understanding I have about this deal between Kenya and Adani, the little I understand is that it is not only Jomo Kenyatta Airport, it is going to be all the airports under the space of Kenya.
Kenya Airports Authority.
And it is going to affect not only Jomo Kenyatta, but also more international airport and even other airports to be built in the future.
Upcoming ones.
Yes. Now the question is, I know in Konza there's supposed to be some Gago international airport to deal with issues of cargo, knowing that in the Horn of Africa, we do not have the necessary capacity in terms of cargo that gets to the continent within the airports that we have. And at times I've been made to understand of the vegetables that we export, Kenya Airways can only accommodate about 10% of that particular export from Kenya. This therefore means there is need for us to improve our infrastructure. But improving our infrastructure, there are two main components. One component is the management component, and the other one is the money. Now, seeing the figures they are trying to flash around, and being realistic about what happens in Africa, because for every deal, there is the deal maker and the deal executor and the man in between, the broker. I could see the figures don't convince me that we ought to have given that to an international entity. If it is public-private sector partnership, with a bit of resources from the Kenyans themselves, the government would have raised that money. Except that possibly people don't trust the current regime. Otherwise, with an effective leadership in place and with a government that is trusted, that money can easily be raised from Kenyans, and they are told how they will benefit in the intervening period or in the long run. But because this government is not has lost a lot of trust perhaps nobody would want to give his money to this government because they don't trust. That's why you've seen even bonds, T-bills, and other market instruments. They are not attracting. At times when they give an offer, they only attract 10%, 20%. This is a sign that there is lack of trust. People don't know what will happen to the economy, what will happen to the dollar in the next 20 days, in the next 1 year. And you've realized many people are not going for the long-term treasury bills or the long-term bonds. They prefer short-term, like 90 days and so forth. It is because there is a lack of trust. And this government has already allowed itself to be in that particular position. Because remember G to G, they say the dollar will come down. Apart from the dollar coming down, the cost of fuel will be lower. Now, yes, they have lowered in the recent past, but it has not gotten where President Uhuru Kenyatta left. The dollar went almost up to 170. It has come back, but we suspect it can also go to 150, 160. So when the government is not predictable, it becomes easy for anybody to pass a story. So what they need to do is to lift their socks and learn to be trustworthy. Don't tell us what is not possible. Yeah.
The bus seems to have left the station when it comes to the takeover of JK and other airports by the Adani Group. But for these striking workers from the Kenya Airports Authority, would you say that theirs is a chase after the wind, or there's something that they could yield from this going to the roads, striking and calling out that takeover?
Well, it is very complicated for them because you see, one of the clauses is that this Adani is going to employ non-Kenyans. So where is the position of the existing Kenyans? They should have been able to secure a clause that that entrenches their presence, so that even if we get other people from outside Kenya, let them be to complement what Kenyans are doing.
Local employment plan.
Yes.
A clause that addresses such.
Yes, so that we are sure the people who are at the airport, those who are supposed to exceed because of natural attrition process, retirement, going to new grounds, or greener pastures, they must be taken care of, because this is a product, or this is a piece of property that belongs to Kenyans. Even the Kenyan space belongs to us. And therefore, nothing should be done that will be at variance with the wishes of Kenyans.
It makes sense. Sticking to the corridors of labor crisis in this country, the other day we saw a section of education stakeholders taking to the streets, Kupet, Note, all demanding for their addresses to be met by the government of the day. We also seen other quarters in our economy issue strike notices, and probably there are going to be more coming in the near future. Would you say, as a country, we failed to address the minimum wage question in this country, and also to be respectful to the CBS that governments gets into with shareholders in this economy?
You know, we've entered a phase that we call management by crisis. We don't seem to spend time to see what is likely to happen in December. And therefore, it's like somebody wants to go for holiday in December, and by now he has not booked a ticket to the destination. The closer you are to the date of travel or your holiday, the more expensive it is going to be for you, whether it's accommodation, whether it's air ticket, or associated kind of products. So that is where we feel there is lack of vision. We seem to be having what we call a knee-jerk reaction. When a crisis does arise, how can you solve it? When there is, because they knew, you know, most of these things were already signed. Some of them emanate from the strike of 1997, and it has been carried over and rolled over. So what we should be doing is really for us to be ahead of time. And that's essence. Somebody in government is paid to think. He's not paid to make money. He's paid to think. And they're supposed to think of how to deal with the situation before it does arise. Yeah.
Very well. And when it comes to the trade union movement in Kenya, and more particularly the Central Organization of Trade Unions, COTU, do you believe there is much they can do from their end besides just commenting on the labor crisis in this country? How hard can they go on this particular course to address the workers' crisis?
One, they should realize they are supposed to be on the side of workers. Number two, they should realize that they are not supposed to be friends of the government. They are supposed to put the government on its toes for the government to perform according to the promises they gave to Kenyans. But of course, there is this issue. Somebody was telling us the other day, the elders of Sugoi, make sure that you cut all the trees, lest your son will hang on one of them when he loses the election. He's now one of the court jesters that visits State House time to time. This is something that worries me. You cannot be condemning somebody today, tomorrow. You are telling him you are the best that Africa has ever had. It is a sign that we are still living in the one-party mentality, the Kanu days, where Kanu was Baba na Mama. We have not changed. Multipartyism has been here, second multipartyism has been here since 1992, or 91 to be exact, because that is when we changed Section 2A in Kasarani as Kanu members of parliament, because Kanu was the only party at that time. We have not changed.
So
Our bad manners are still carrying us forward, or we are still carrying forward the bad manners of yesteryears.
So you'd probably implore trade union leaders of today maybe to borrow leaf from the late Tom Mboya, who, despite being a political person, he got into that arena via trade union movement, but he was also so vocal about it, and we saw the fortunes he heralded for us as a country then. Would you then implore them to borrow leaf from Tom Mboya?
They should borrow from the late Tom Mboya, people like Dennis Okumu, people like the late Juma Boy, people like the late Peter Kibisu. All those are people who in the labor movement, they behaved well. Some were rewarded, were elected members of parliament. Some were not so rewarded, but still they played a role to make this country better. Yeah, and they should also check the best internationals, the best in standards internationally. That's the best way to look at this country. Kenya deserves better. Let me tell you, in terms of human resource, we have the best, perhaps in Africa. In terms of technology, we are ahead, especially when it comes to this new technology. When it comes to hard work, our people work very hard. It's only we who don't reward them with commensurate compensation according to their capacity. And what Kenya is lacking is effective leadership. Yeah, because today somebody will be on top of a rooftop of a car, talks about the things that they want to change. When he gets out of it, I think, you know, like the Sakaja in Nyanza the other day, tells you we don't believe in what we say as politicians. And you saw the other cartoon. I like seeing checking on cartoons. The one that the Minister for Energy was shouting how there was a blackout. Then a few days, the same year, exactly 1 year later, he himself, you can only see the teeth, he's in blackout himself. These are some of the pretenses that we visit our country. But more important, I would want to know, why was that blackout? Did they explain to us?
You read malice into it?
I read malice. Possibly there were some things they were shifting from airport to some other places. You know, do you know this is the only regime that has had 24 hours blackout? The whole country. Because you see, in the past you could say Eldoret, you could say Nairobi, different parts. This is national blackout. Why don't you ask yourself why?
People on life support machine at risk.
Yeah.
Just so to achieve underdeals.
Underdeals. You know, when you elect a government of merchants, the merchandise that will be carried out of the country, you don't know.
So these merchants don't have a sense of shame, or at least dignity in their
Their shame is consumed by the lagis and the money that they get.
Not respect for the sanctity of human life?
That human life is secondary. You've seen abductions. Where are those boys being taken? They don't think, unless it is their own lives. They are not worried about what happens to you or to me, unless it's their own lives.
You've mentioned about abductions, and most of those who succumbed to it were the Gen Z outfit, or rather I should say members, particularly youthful Kenyans.
Yeah.
And at some point in their quest for reforms, all they were calling out the government for was to bring a nation that gives them a sense of hope, that things are going to be good, and also to fix economic messes therein.
Yes.
But right now, that particular lot, the Gen Z, we are seeing them maintain sort of a pin drop silence. Would you say that for them, it is just the calm before the storm? The government shouldn't think that it has sunk them into oblivion?
Well, I don't know, because I don't belong to that generation. I have, I think, one or two of my grandchildren, and one child is in that particular generation. I will interview them and get to know what's happening. But just reading generally about political situations, there is what they call a lull before a storm. Perhaps when they were outwitted by Raila being roped into this new government, they are still watching. Yeah, they are still worried. What does it entail? What does it mean? Will the government change some of the attitude? Will it change some of the dealings that they have been doing? And if they don't change, it will catch up with it. And by then, Raila will not be useful to the current president. And the current president will not be useful to himself. Because I strongly believe those issues are fundamental and they are long term. These are not issues. Lack of inclusivity should be a national concern. Lack of fairness should be a national concern. Lack of prudent management of resources should be a national concern. Lack of high moral probity should be a national concern. Lack of effective leadership should be our national concern. We should not just ignore and assume once you are elected the deal is there. And that's why our friend used to say, we won fair and square.
Yeah.
I don't hear it anymore because they have realized they have been squared.
So on the material day, that monkey destined to die will find all trees slippery. Should it ignore the voice of the Gen Z?
Yes, because the burden of incumbency in the next election is with the sitting president. And I don't know how he will explain himself. The 5 people he has given from Azimio or from ODM,
Expatriates.
the expatriates that never were.
Is it just because you're not given the job, that's why you're speaking in that sense?
I will not pretend to be an expatriate or even an expert in anything.
Even in blue economy?
No, I cannot pretend. But I can say something about leadership because I'm trained and I've done leadership for quite some time. I can say something about foreign relations because I'm trained.
Climate change like the president?
I will just spend the little science I know to explain factors affecting climate change. And I will explain geopolitics.
In a town hall like him?
A town hall, but no. I'll be talking to people like you and Ryan. Or I write my articles and publish them for eternity.
Here is a man contented to the extreme. That point by former Minister Kipleto Arap Kira takes us to the wrap of the day's conversation. Remember, on Business Glide, we normally have that segment that is our fan of the week, and today it is none other than this intelligent, brilliant lady, Madam Nerima Wako, Executive Director, Siasa Place. Do you know her?
I know her. We've not met one-to-one, but we've met in spirit, and I enjoy her wit. She's very witty, very articulate, and seriously focused. Yeah.
In the footsteps maybe of Amos Wako?
Perhaps. Yeah, they come from the same area.
And family.
And they have one family. Yeah, so I do appreciate her, and I want to encourage her not to lose hope. Yeah, Kenya is likely to be resurrected by the GNCs. Yeah.
There you have it, Nerima Wako. Asante sana for always tuning in to our conversations, and also your input and advice on what we cover here goes a long way. Until we meet next time on Business Glide, do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Up next on your screen is the Business Glide African Proverb of the Day.